History Trivia. Trivia questions read out loud. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment saying I subscribed and we will personally respond to your comment. Keep track of your score and watch until the end, where we have added a bonus question that only 50% of people get right. 1. In which year was D-Day? A. 1944, B. 1941, C. 1942, or D. 1945? The answer is A. 1944. 2. Which ancient civilization used to worship turkeys as gods? A. The Incan civilization, B. The Chinese civilization, C. The ancient Greek civilization, or D. The Maya civilization? The answer is D. The Maya civilization. 3. Which famous conqueror was attacked by a large group of rabbits? A. Julius Caesar, B. Napoleon Bonaparte, C. Cyrus the Great, or D. Alexander the Great? The answer is B. Napoleon Bonaparte. 4. Which was the 17th century privateer Captain Morgan's first name? A. Henry, B. Alexander, C. Benjamin, or D. Thomas? The answer is A. Henry. 5. Which dining utensil used to be considered sacrilegious? A. Chopsticks, B. Knives, C. Forks, or D. Spoons? The answer is C. Forks. 6. Which American president is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame? A. Jimmy Carter, B. Abraham Lincoln, C. Theodore Roosevelt, or D. Franklin D. Roosevelt? The answer is B. Abraham Lincoln. 7. Which American president died from eating too many cherries? A. Zachary Taylor, B. Benjamin Harrison, C. Franklin Pierce, or D. Grover Cleveland? The answer is A. Zachary Taylor. 8. In which year were slaves emancipated in America? A. 1868, B. 1863, C. 1865, or D. 1861? The answer is B. 1863. 9. Who was the first Prime Minister of Canada? A. John Abbott, B. Mackenzie Bowell, C. John A. Macdonald, or D. Alexander Mackenzie? The answer is C. John A. Macdonald. 10. The terrorist attacks of 9/11 took place on which day of the week? A. Wednesday, B. Thursday, C. Monday, or D. Tuesday? The answer is D. Tuesday. 11. Which was the most commonly used weapon by Egyptians? A. Bow and arrow, B. Spear, C. Sword, or D. Dagger? The answer is A. Bow and arrow. 12. In which country was Pope John Paul II born? A. United Kingdom, B. Poland, C. Germany, or D. Belgium? The answer is B. Poland. 13. Who was Hitler's second in command? A. Heinrich Himmler. B. Hermann Göring. C. Joseph Goebbels. Or D. Martin Bormann. The answer is A. Heinrich Himmler. 14. In which year was Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated? A. 1967. B. 1964. C. 1968. Or D. 1965. The answer is C. 1968. 15. Which liquid did the Romans once use as mouthwash? A. Snake blood. B. Urine. C. Ocean water. Or D. Apple juice. The answer is B. Urine. 16. Who was the first woman appointed to the Supreme Court? A. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. B. Sonia Sotomayor. C. Eleanor Kagan. Or D. Sandra Day O'Connor. The answer is D. Sandra Day O'Connor. 17. Who was the wealthiest pirate in recorded history? A. Captain Samuel Bellamy. B. Edward Teach, aka Blackbeard. C. Sir Henry Morgan. Or D. Henry Every, aka Long Ben. The answer is A. Captain Samuel Bellamy. 18. Which year did the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor? A. 1943. B. 1940. C. 1941. Or D. 1942. The answer is C. 1941. 19. Which American president opened a whiskey distillery after his presidency? A. George Washington. B. John Adams. C. Thomas Jefferson. Or D. James Madison. The answer is A. George Washington. 20. Which is the deadliest war in human history? A. Mexican-American War. B. World War II. C. The Revolutionary War. Or D. World War I. The answer is B. World War II. 21. In which city and state did Rosa Parks refuse to give up her bus seat? A. Montgomery, Alabama. B. Little Rock, Arkansas. C. Birmingham, Alabama. Or D. Charleston, South Carolina. The answer is A. Montgomery, Alabama. 22. Which is the only American president to be impeached twice? A. Richard Nixon. B. Bill Clinton. C. Donald Trump. Or D. Ronald Reagan. The answer is C. Donald Trump. 23. Which year did Mexico gain independence from Spain? A. 1810. B. 1805. C. 1821. Or D. 1809. The answer is A. 1810. 24. Who was the first Roman emperor? A. Tiberius. B. Nero. C. Claudius. Or D. Augustus. The answer is D. Augustus. 25. Which year was Malcolm X assassinated? A. 1963. B. 1961, C. 1965, or D. 1964? The answer is C. 1965. Bonus: which branch of military did former President Ronald Reagan serve in? A. Army, B. Navy, C. Air Force, or D. Marines? The answer is A. Army. How did you do? Comment below your score. Watch this video next.